Now on BBC One, the lunchtime news with Darren Jordan.
A man is arrested by armed officers searching for the Leeds police killer. He was taken early this morning from a bed and breakfast in Gateshead. England's World Cup rugby team head the list of New Year's honours. Help for the earthquake survivors. Now American aid workers join the effort. And more trouble for Princess Anne's dog, accused of attacking a royal housemaid. Good afternoon. Police have arrested a man in connection with the murder of a police officer in Leeds on Boxing Day. The man was detained by armed officers in Gateshead in the early hours of this morning after a tip-off from a member of the public. He's believed to be Nathan Coleman, who police wanted to question over the murder of PC Ian Broadhurst.
A police search team moves into the hotel where the arrest was made. They've begun a meticulous examination of the building, concentrating on the room in which the man was staying. It was shortly before midnight that police were tipped off by a member of the public. A man answering Nathan Coleman's description had been seen. 2 hours later, at around 2 in the morning, armed officers moved in. Earlier, there'd been chaos at York railway station during last night's rush hour. A flower seller told police he'd seen Mr. Coleman heading towards the platforms. The station was sealed off for 3 hours. Today, the police are saying little. But one possibility is that before the station was shut, Mr. Coleman caught a train to Newcastle. From Newcastle Station to the Royal Hotel in Gateshead, it takes 15 minutes by taxi. Speaking on BBC local radio this morning, the police said the man arrested in the early hours offered no resistance.
He was compliant when challenged by the armed police, and came with us without any resistance. He's being held in a police station in Northumberland pending the arrival of the investigation team from West Yorkshire.
It was on Boxing Day that Police Constable Ian Broadhurst was shot dead by a man he was in the process of arresting. The gunman fired shots at 2 other officers, injuring one of them. Nathan Wayne Coleman, a nightclub bouncer born in the United States, was named by the police as the man they wanted to question. For 5 days, this police station in Leeds has been the nerve centre of an intense search. Later today, the man arrested in Gateshead will be brought to Leeds for questioning. He'll be interviewed about the death of Police Constable Ian Broadhurst and the attempted killing of 2 other officers. Kevin Baquet, BBC News, Leeds.
Well, let's talk to our correspondent Branwen Jeffries, who's in Gateshead now. Branwen, so what happens next now that they've arrested this man?
Well, the search is still concentrated here, Darren, at the Royal Hotel. Having thoroughly searched the room and the hotel itself, they've now extended the cordon, and within the last few minutes, a team of forensic officers has begun looking around the area around the hotel. This is a primarily industrial part of Gateshead. The hotel would usually be used by contractors, but at this time of year, it's often empty. Obviously, that wasn't the case last night. As we heard there in Kevin's report, there will be a team from West Yorkshire travelling up to Northumberland. They will be questioning the man at an unknown location. All right,
Branwen, thank you for that. England's Rugby World Cup winning squad are the toast of the New Year honours list. Every member has been recognised, including the manager, Clive Woodward, who receives a knighthood. Among the other honours, the actress Joan Plowright has been made a dame, and there was an OBE for Nicholas Parsons. But it's the sporting world which is dominated.
So it's back to Buckingham Palace again for England's rugby squad. Barely has their World Cup victory been celebrated than Martin Johnson, Johnny Wilkinson and company will be returning to collect honours. But the greatest of them bestowed on the head coach, Clive Woodward, knighted. He has accepted plenty of awards this past month, but this is recognition for the entire squad of players and coaches. Awards that mirror the public jubilation that greeted England's triumph. When the footballers won the World Cup in 1966, honours arrived slowly and seemed rather grudging. The lesson has been learnt. Today, an entire squad honoured.
If one gets it, I think they all deserve it, and I think we all of us put in the work. And but to get recognising this, and like you said, the support that we've had since we've been back has just been massive, and it's just a great experience for us all.
Tim Henman can't call himself a world champion yet, but years of carrying Britain's tennis hopes have earned him an OBE. Record-breaking round-the-world yachtswoman Emma Richards receives an MBE, while the ebullient Celtic manager Martin O'Neill has another reason to celebrate, an OBE for him. And there's also recognition for the former boxer Michael Watson, who overcame serious injuries to complete this year's London Marathon, an MBE for services to disabled sport.
Deeply honoured. I really am. Deeply touched and honoured.
When you first heard about it, how did you feel?
I was staggered. Went through my heart like a knife.
They make for a rich mixture of sporting heroes, and at their heart, they're men who brought back the World Cup. It doesn't happen often. Little wonder the nation thinks they should all get some thanks. Adam Parsons, BBC News.
He has been a rock phenomenon for over 30 years. Now Eric Clapton, CBE, is acknowledged for a glittering career that's far from over, joining a new cross-section of figures from the world of music and entertainment. Among them, a man with one of the most instantly recognised faces in show business. Pete Postlethwaite gains an OBE for his work on TV and on major films such as this one, In the Name of the Father.
My name's Giuseppe Con and I'm an innocent man.
Roy Hudd, actor and comedian, whose show The News Headlines was a radio fixture for 2 decades, has also been awarded an OBE. As has the silver-voiced presenter of another radio institution. At 70, he has no intention of slowing down, nor joining those who've chosen to reject their award.
Hello and welcome to Just a Minute.
If someone offers you an honour which isn't really like a gift, you don't actually return it. I think that's being a little bit pompous and small-minded.
I mean, thousands of animals are darted and moved.
Another OBE goes to actress and wildlife campaigner Virginia McKenna, whose life was changed forever after making the film Born Free.
In our work for nearly 20 years, we have challenged the establishment. I personally never even dreamt that I would ever be awarded anything, so I was truly astonished.
And building up a head of steam for his visit to the palace, TV steeplejack Fred Dibner, MBE.
You know, I never looked for any of this fame. You know, I just soldiered on in my chosen occupation of being a steeplejack.
But he says it could mean a new flat cap. Robert Hall, BBC News.
Well, the government has ordered an inquiry into the selection process for honours amid calls it should be made more transparent. Well, let's speak to John Andrew, who's in Downing Street now for us. John, what sort of changes are they proposing then?
Well, they really want to make the system more transparent, more open, more a 21st century honour system. Some of the 3,000 awards that are dished out every year, some of those actually date back to the 14th century. A lot, of course, are associated with empire, things like, you know, Commander of the Empire, Officer of the Empire. So those sort of titles could disappear. This has been made more controversial because in recent weeks there have been leaks to the newspapers about how the names are chosen. Tim Henman, for instance, you saw earlier, he was added to the list to add interest, it was said. And also a leading British scientist who works with animals was left out because of his controversial work. So what the government want to do is to make it different. And we should see a new type of honours list in place for the same time next year.
All right, John, thanks for that. American aid workers have joined the effort to help survivors of the earthquake in Iran. They're the first official party from the US to set foot in the country for more than 20 years. The team of medical workers is setting up a field hospital in Bam, where 40,000 people are now thought to have died. From there, Nick Bryant reports.
More like a building site than a graveyard. The cemetery on the outskirts of Bam, where vast communal graves are being dug by bulldozers, where makeshift tombstones are being made of cardboard. This dust-blown wasteland has become sacred ground. Unthinkable this time last week, but for the people of Bam, the unimaginable has been made real. This man grieves for his wife, 3 children, sister and brother. God, please kill me too, he cries. Every 10 minutes or so, another body arrives for burial. It's estimated that some 28,000 corpses have been brought here so far.
For almost a week now, these teams of gravediggers have been working from 6 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. They still have no idea when their work will be finished.
For relatives of the missing, laptop computers display pictures of bodies yet to be identified. A gruesome database of the dead, which has so far helped 40 people discover the fate of their loved ones. Elsewhere in the city, early signs of a clear-up operation underway, helped by the arrival of an 80-strong team of American relief workers. They're here to assess structural damage and set up a field hospital. 25 years of hostile relations temporarily put on hold.
It's historic, and we realize that, but I think it's important that we're not here about politics. We're here about humanitarian relief. We're here to help the people of Iran just as we would go to any other country.
Aid is pouring in from all over the world, and for these desperate survivors, there's an emergency relief centre this morning. It can't come soon enough. Nick Bryant, BBC News, BAM.
The American government has imposed flight restrictions over New York and Las Vegas as a precaution against any possible terrorist attacks on New Year's Eve. Times Square in New York and the Strip in Las Vegas are two of the country's most popular centres for celebrations. Well, our correspondent Justin Webb is in Washington now. Justin, how much tighter is the security this year?
Well, the Homeland Security Department say it is unprecedented. They say right across America, police leave has been cancelled in Las Vegas, huge numbers of police on the streets in other cities as well, a lot of extra security measures, but all of it focusing in particularly on New York, where the biggest of the New Year's celebrations take place. There are going to be armed officers, a lot of them already patrolling the streets. They're going to be on the subway system as well. There are going to be people with radiation detectors around the place. It is really going to be something that Americans notice, and the hope is that they continue to enjoy themselves but feel a bit safer.
Justin, briefly, what more do we know about the reasons behind this tighter security then?
Seems to be all linked to the chatter that was heard in recent weeks and led to the alert system being raised from yellow to orange here, possibly linked as well to this business of threats from planes, and of course an awful lot of talk about transatlantic flights and whether or not there should be air marshals on board. That appears to be the genesis of all of this.
Justin, thank you. Tony Blair has used his New Year message to insist he'll press ahead with public service reform. He said that he will not falter with a job only half done. The Prime Minister, who has faced opposition over plans for foundation hospitals, is now trying to persuade MPs to let universities in England charge higher tuition fees. The stock market looks like ending 2003 on a high. Share prices are expected to finish the year 13% higher than 12 months ago, the first time the stock market's grown since the boom of 1999. Here's our economics correspondent, Jenny Scott.
There were just a few hardy souls in the city this morning. They were making the most of what's been a pretty good end to a pretty good year for shares. Our stock market hasn't done as well as those in America or Japan, but it's still managed its best performance for some time. After 3 years of falls, though, we're still a long way from previous record highs. The FTSE 100 index fell sharply in 2000 and 2001, and it was down another 25% last year. 2003 didn't start much better. Just look at the fall in prices around the time of the war against Iraq. But now healthier economies in the US and across the world mean those worries are over for now. Shares look like ending the year around 13% higher. Of course, hindsight is a wonderful thing when you're investing in shares. But what's going to happen in the next 12 months? Have we turned the corner?
10% gain from where we are at the moment looks very plausible. The big concern we have is what happens as we approach the end of 2004, early 2005. At that stage, the world economy, especially the UK, the economics will begin to look very overheated, and at that stage central banks will have to start raising interest rates, while governments will have to start talking about reining in expenditure and raising taxes.
So while your pension or endowment mortgage may be in better shape now, the message from the city is don't count on a return to the boom years anytime soon. Jenny Scott, BBC News.
Princess Anne's bull terrier Florence is in the doghouse again, this time for biting a royal maid. It comes just days after the same dog mauled one of the Queen's corgis so badly that it had to be put down.
Princess Anne has 2 bull terriers, Florence and Dottie. A third dog, Eglantine, died 18 months ago. Since then, Dottie and Florence have got themselves and their mistress into trouble. Princess Anne's bedroom at Sandringham was the scene of the latest attack when Florence bit a housemaid on the knee on Saturday while she was cleaning. This came just days after the same dog attacked one of the Queen's corgis so savagely that it had to be put down. At first, it was thought Dottie had attacked the corgi, but it now seems it was a case of mistaken identity. Last year, Anne became the first member of the royal family in modern times to get a criminal record after Dottie attacked 2 boys in Windsor Great Park. Dottie was spared then, and the maid who was bitten this weekend says Florence shouldn't be put down either. The Princess is said to be extremely concerned about this incident, and the palace say it's likely that Florence will now be sent on a dog behavioural training course. Emma Howard, BBC News, Buckingham Palace.
Now, the biggest python ever captured has been put on display at a zoo in Indonesia. The snake, which was caught by villagers on the island of Sumatra, uncoils to 50 feet. That's longer than a bus and weighs almost 1,000 pounds. Local people believe it has magical powers. Well, that's it for now. There are news updates throughout the day on BBC News 24, and you can find it on satellite channel 507, Freeview channel 40, and on cable. And I'll be back with more from the newsroom at 5 to 5 on BBC One. But now it's time to join our news teams across the UK.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Steve Humphrey with the latest news in the south. A police investigation is underway in Dorset after the burning body of a man was found in a remote country lane. The discovery was made by a woman motorist near the village of Plush, north of Dorchester. From the scene, Adrian Campbell reports.
Police forensic officers have been working close to the village of Plush, where a man's body was found around 5:45 last night. One witness described what he saw.
Somebody had already got there before me, come from the other way. He was in a bit of a state and said there's a body on fire, and he said, could you just check, have a look, see what you think. And so I had a look, and obviously you could see it was a person on fire who looked like he'd been on fire for quite a few minutes.
Dorset police say they don't know what happened here, but they are treating this incident as suspicious, and they want to hear from anyone who was in this area around 5:45 last night.
What I would ask is if any of your viewers have any information that would assist us in our investigation, I would ask them to come forward on the numbers that we have provided to you.
I reckon you get under there, though. A Home Office pathologist was carrying out an examination of the body, which has now been removed from this remote spot near Cerne Abbas.
Boisterous New Year's Eve revellers in Sussex may find their antics recorded on police cameras tonight. The police will be using 5 new mobile CCTV vans. As Chris Connerby reports, it's intended to be a high visibility operation.
The message is pretty clear for tonight, and so is the picture produced by the cameras on these new mobile units. Good enough not just to identify trouble spots, but ultimately to use as evidence in court.
They'll be in all the main towns and city centres right across Sussex. We'll be moving them around. They'll be in places where there is already CCTV, places where there isn't, where there are hot spots. And we do know, sadly, that during New Year's Eve there are 1 or 2 injuries each year, and that is avoidable, and we're trying to do that. So we will put these vans where we know there are problems.
Police are well rehearsed in dealing with people out for the night, as here in Crawley, filmed by the BBC earlier this year. New Year's Eve is, of course, a busy night, so the mobile cameras are likely to see plenty of action. Chris Connerby for BBC South Today.
The Wiltshire Fire Service has formally objected to the proposed tunnel at Stonehenge. It wants the design to include a fire suppression system on safety grounds. The Stonehenge tunnel is expected to be the longest road tunnel in the country and the most expensive publicly funded road scheme. There'll be a public inquiry in the new year. Firefighters from Hampshire who travelled to Iran to search for signs of life following the earthquake have returned home. The team flew into Stansted in the early hours of this morning and will hold a press conference later this afternoon back in Hampshire. While the firefighters were helping the rescue effort in Iran, they had to identify the body of their former colleague Gavin Sexton, who was killed in the earthquake. Gavin, who was from Southampton, had left the fire service to travel around the world. Now, the hard work and dedication of dozens of people across the south has been recognised in the New Year Honours List. Amongst those included is a man who is passionate about his local canal. Chrissy Sturt reports.
The restoration of the Chichester Canal has been a lifelong passion for John Cooper. For his services to this beautiful waterway, he's been honoured with an NBE.
It's very much an award which is given to the whole organisation, because
Thousands of man-hours have been put into this exercise by hundreds of volunteers over the years, so it recognises what they've done.
And in Oxfordshire, Barry Adby receives an MBE for his role as a retained firefighter.
We've had the luck in Watlington that we turned out to every call we were asked to for 15 years solid, and that is a record in itself.
The work of Bournemouth West MP John Butterfill is recognised with a knighthood, and champion swimmer Katie Sexton from Portsmouth also receives the MBE, the first British woman to strike gold at the World Championships in Barcelona. Chrissy Sturt for BBC's South Today.
Now let's have a look at the weather forecast. Misty in places this afternoon, but some bright spells. Highest temperatures 5 Celsius, that's 41 Fahrenheit. Now tonight, becoming wet and windy, I'm afraid, with some sleet on the hills. There will be strong winds. Temperatures tonight will fall to 4 Celsius, that's 39 Fahrenheit. Tomorrow, cloudy with outbreaks of rain. That's it from us. Don't forget that we're back later on this afternoon with another bulletin. From the Lunchtime team, a very good afternoon.
Any sense of where we are geographically?
No idea whatsoever at the moment, I'm afraid.
Testing a psychic, probing our past.
It goes as a set. There's a bigger cello or something that would go with it.
Can our man really speak to 3 historical characters? I'm just going to frisk you to make sure that you're not carrying any sort of secret gear here, I'm amazed. Tune in. Watch the new series of Inside Out, BBC One, next Monday at 7:30.
Hello there, certainly no New Year's honours for me, at least not after you've heard this forecast. There's some pretty horrendous weather coming up for tonight, so bear that in mind if you're going out revelling for the new year. Battle taking place, area of low pressure developing to the northwest, trying to push those mild winds in from the Atlantic. The high is being stubborn to the east of us, and as a result the low itself will slip down across the country, giving some very nasty weather indeed. The first of those is the snow and blizzards. Heavy snow across Scotland, much of it at lower levels I think will turn to rain. Real blizzards though over the hills, and I think those conditions could well spread to northern parts of England later on this afternoon. 15 centimetres or so in places, already happening on the satellite radar picture. You can see the rain, sleet and snow coming in from the northwest. That process continuing. Many of these areas turning wet and very windy this afternoon. Gales, even severe gales, storm force winds across the northwest of Scotland. There could be some gusts up to 70, 80 miles an hour, but staying dry in the southeastern corner, albeit rather on the grey side. Of course, as the wind picks up, it will feel raw. Best temperatures of 2 or 3 degrees. During this evening into the night, the rain, maybe a bit of sleet and wet snow heads down into the southeastern corner. Still the blizzards continue over the hills further north, but by that time snow anywhere else should have turned to rain, and it'll be heading into the east during the night. Somewhat clearer weather coming into the west, but not dry. There'll still be some showers around, but at least it will be milder, so all those showers will be of rain. Tomorrow looks like turning out to be a real mess. Many places windy, cloudy, outbreaks of rain, but at least a little bit milder.